record that. Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Let me make sure that I've got everything working. I think I do. Let me check this on my other screen. Alright, okay. Yes, it's working. Alright. And there's already a viewer. I did not expect anyone to catch on so quickly. Oh, never mind. Now there's two. Alright.
Welcome to the stream, everyone.
Welcome to the stream, everyone. Yeah, today I am going to be joined in the background with some people you can hear, some people you can't. I've got Leon Saiyan Arts, who you guys probably remember from a couple of my videos. I've got Zenitor, who you've never seen on this channel before, I'm pretty certain, and Gab, who I think you've seen once or twice, but he's also silent here. I'll have to read his messages to me through Discord, or if he makes them in the actual YouTube chat. But, yeah. What we're going to be doing with this stream is... Can I add Rebecca? Well, no, because she's not in the show. I'll get into it. Oh, you've been watching since episode 4? Thank you, Will. So, what we're going to be doing first in this is me and Zen and Leon and the others, we're going to be ranking the characters that have shown up in person in my show and have had actual lines to... We're going to rank them, then I'm going to have you, viewers, rank them. After that, or even during, really, you could ask us basically any questions you want about, like, the story, why I made certain writing decisions I did. Just really all kinds of questions, if you guys have any. But, firstly, guys, I think we should talk about Shane in this rewrite. He is just so dramatically different from Ken and Shane on so many levels. He's
not an adulterer.
I mean, he is, but he is an adulterer, yes, but he's not as insane as he normally goes, even by the end of season 1. He's kinda just had everything going his way up until the last couple of things of episode 5. Which means you're probably going to start seeing things not go great for him mentally. But so far, he's been really a great character for this series. I mean, he has... You know, he's defended Carol across this series a couple of times. He spared Ed. He's led the group rather well in this timeline, especially with the extra support he's gotten from working closer with Dale and with just having a better relationship with really a lot of the cast he has a better relationship with. He works well with Daryl, works well with Dale. Through his work with Leon, he works better with Amy. Andrea doesn't really like him all that much. She kind of likes him a little less because of the fact that he forced everyone to pretty consistently train, which Andrea just didn't think Amy was ready for, you know, coincidentally. But yeah, I think Shane was a solid, I'd say S tier character. I don't really have anything about Shane, even as I was writing him, that gave me a particular reason to hate him. He still has his flaws of being, you know, a little arrogant and not liking when things don't go his way, but relatively, especially compared to his canon self, he's a very, very calm person. So I think we'll put him in S tier. Now, what about Rick? Rick in this series has had a lot less of a central role. You know, we don't see Morgan and Dwayne ever, because the entirety of episode 1 is focused on Shane and his backstory rather than Rick. Wait, Will just said... Will said he liked Rick in episode 1. Rick is hardly there. He almost died. You think of him as he's more of a
Exactly.
background character. I mean, yeah, he's not the absolute main character. He's one of the main characters, main cast, but he's not the actual main characters. Oh, you meant Shane in episode
Okay,
one. That's that's very fair. Yeah, Shane in episode one.
I,
Go ahead, Zen.
Gab said something I think is worth sharing.
Oh Lord.
So you pretty much just replaced his insanity with his ego.
No, his ego's with the insanity in the original series. He's got both. Um. Yeah, but Rick in this series. Oh God, how he is. I don't think. I mean, obviously he's not as good because he's not the main character. He doesn't have as much screen time, for lack of a better word. But he's been closer to Shane, which I think is more of an interesting dynamic. Like when Lori was pissed at the both of them over the situation with Merle. Really, the only argument Shane's had with Rick in this entire series was the argument about going to the Vatos or not. And that's really it. They've worked pretty well together, aside from that. And because of that, they haven't had nearly as many scenes together as they could have. Though Rick still does do a lot. In episode 2, he's still the main driving force of everything going on, even though it's from the perspective of Leon, by and large. So, there's still that. Oh, Will has a quick question. He questions how Rick and Shane are going to get to Rick's farm. He's curious because they're at the Vatos. So I'm assuming you mean Herschel's farm. But I don't know yet. I don't even know if they will necessarily get there. If things in episode 6, as I'm writing them, I have plans for Dr. Jenner, Will. Yes. Yes. Will asked, Will said you should do a head or tail flip on if Dr. Jenner is going to join. I have a plan for that. There's an entire big Shane moment that's going to be there that you guys will see when I fully finish writing and editing out that episode. So yeah.
Roll a D100. If it's high, he joins. If it lows, he doesn't.
If it's low, he doesn't. Yeah. Oh, wait. I got a number 1 fam symbol over Polar King? I can't believe I missed that. Oh, no, it's nothing wrong, Will. That was a big part of this. It was supposed to be, I talk to you guys as we go through this. Polar gave me
It's a chatting stream.
Polar gave me plus 25 XP. I don't know what that means, but thanks, Polar. Sorry I didn't get to thank you while you were still in stream. Or, sorry, Josh Pruitt, not Polar. Sorry, Josh. I don't know why I said Polar. Yeah, Polar King. Polar King and Josh are the same. Sorry about that. I got distracted again. Anyways, to end off with Rick's character and how I think he is as a character in this series, I don't think he's as good, mostly just because he doesn't get much opportunities to be. He's kinda just himself, really. He doesn't really have any opportunities to grow so far, because most everything on his side has gone the same, aside from him fighting with Lori. Yes, Rick and Shane will both have more screen time in Season 2, especially considering the things I have written for Episode 6 of Season 1. But yeah, I'd say Rick goes into A tier. What do you guys think?
I'm fine with it. Because I think I may have joined off on a whim, because I don't know much about Walking Dead.
Oh, well, that's fair. This is my rewrite of The Walking Dead we're judging them on, so to be fair, that's fine.
I actually might need to start watching those videos then.
Yeah. Well, that's if you want to. It's
I
entirely.
just remember that you asked if I asked for me to draw a few characters, which I still need to get on.
Yeah. Well, I also asked a couple of other people if they'd be willing to draw certain characters as well, but that's entirely if you guys get to it. We can talk about them even though they're not on this list. But we'll get to them when we get to we'll talk to them when they got introduced, which was right after Sophia and Ed. So once we're done talking about Sophia and Ed, we'll talk about the two added in characters, Antonia and Edward Strathmore. Also, thank you DJC Gaming for being here. You think A is good? Thank you. I agree with that.
I was about to say, Gab said low A, but nonetheless.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you guys think of Leon? He's a character who really doesn't have anything but one scene in the original show. In this timeline, he's got a couple of pretty interesting things going on for himself. He's been Rick's or Shane's closest confidant for most of this show. And if it wasn't for the fact that he's kind of a dimwit, Shane would probably have had him be his sole confidant and not have really interacted with Daryl. His relationship with Amy was a fun dynamic for me to write. And you guys might question why I put a relationship between him and Amy at all. But that's just because I thought they really just clicked very well together. Amy and Leon have really compatible personalities as of the stuff that's really explained to them in the show. And on top of that, they're close in age. They'd have been working together for months. I just think it makes sense for stuff like that for a relationship to occur. Several comments have come in. Yeah, everyone's agreeing that Leon's peak. Will says, I see a similar scene as Rick and Shane in the field in season 2, but you see Shane and Leon. God, I hope not. I really hope not. That would hurt me too much. Even writing this, it hurts. There are a couple of things you'll see in episode 6 that really personally hurt me. We got really lucky with episode 6. I'm just gonna warn you with that now. Episode 6, you all got insanely lucky. It could have been so much worse. New Star Killer asks if the character art for the two OCs is done. No, I have asked two of my friends to work on it, and apparently I asked Leon at some point, but I don't remember doing that.
You asked me about two. Let me go back and look at our chats, because I know you asked about two characters. I just don't remember which two.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
But yeah, I asked two of my friends to work on that, and they're still in the process of doing it. All of us have quite busy lives. That's part of the reason that my episodes take so long to get through. I mean, not only is there the writing and the editing and all of that, but I've got to deal with life outside of the videos, which is part of the reason it takes so long. I'm trying to streamline the process. I really am, but I don't think that's going to work out considering how things have gone with each episode being longer than the last. Aside from, episode 4 for some reason.
Yeah, you gave me references for how the comic style is, and it's for Antonia and Edward.
Yes, Antonia and Edward Strathmore. Yeah, DJC Gaming said that scene would be so hard and emotional. Yeah, a scene of Leon and Shane. Yes, I agree. That would be agonizingly painful. New Star Killer said, will we be able to request things to the Chaos Rolls? The Chaos Rolls are already going to be terrible. I don't think you want to request anything. Even if you were to, I really don't know what requests I'd be able to allow with how I have the idea for the wheels to really go. So I guess it kind of depends on what you ask. Will says, I hope Beth and Daryl get together in this rewrite. No, Will, please. Beth, when she met Daryl, she was like 16, and Daryl was like 33. No. That's one thing I'll be very strict on with relationships. I'm not going to random roll relationships. I'm going to try and have them be as organic as possible. Yeah, no. If I random rolled events, I would really worry about things of characters that really don't fit together ending up as a pairing. So, yeah, they're going to be very much stuff that I write into the story, if they're different at all, which I don't think most of them would be, realistically, unless a certain character is dead. New Starkiller said, fun fact, Edward was from a Zomboid event a while back. Also, Edward was kind of based off of Edward from Thomas the Tank Engine. I can't believe I didn't see that before. That's crazy. That's crazy, Starkiller. That's insane. God damn it.
I'm trying to remember which tank engine it was. It wasn't a green one. No, wait, no, it was a green. No, that was Henry.
No, yeah, that was...
I'm just going back. I'm now just going back through Thomas Tank Engine. Dang it.
God, it's giving me childhood flashbacks. Anyways, Mrs. Heller. She's not a character. She's got, like, 2 scenes, and she gets dropped off at her house.
No, Edward was a blue one.
And then that's it. She's going in F tier. She was basically a plot device. She could have ended up being more. I mean, you guys remember, it could have ended up being that either Shane goes back to pick her up, or Leon, or God, what was the guy's name? I forgot his name. Shane's ex-girlfriend's dad. How'd I forget his name? He was a more interesting character. Greg. Okay. He was a more interesting character just by virtue of him being in the game that my first episode is basically a one-to-one recreation of. I mean, he's a pretty interesting character. He's got a really, really, really fucked up situation that he was put in for the episode. But again, I can't really take credit for him as a character, nor Shane's character in the first episode in particular, just because it was essentially a one-to-one to what the game and some of his backstory comics tell us. So, yeah, I'll put him in C just by virtue of him having interesting stuff, but only really being in one episode. So, yeah. Dale. Dale in this series is an interesting one. He doesn't have a ton of on-screen appearances. But when he does, they are really, really important. He also has a lot of off-screen work that he does. He has been working with Shane and Leon a lot over the course of the events that happened before the story. And because Shane isn't as violent or as nuts in this series as in canon that Shane usually is, Dale gets along with him better. And he's kind of... You get a sense of kind of respect between them, like in the scene where they talk on the roof of the RV for a while, and Dale basically plays therapist for Shane. I would put Dale I would put Dale middle A. He doesn't do a ton, and he's nowhere near important to the story as Rick is in events that happen in the show itself. But the few things he does do are just... I don't know. I just like them more, I guess. I don't really have an objective reason. Yeah. Josh Pruitt Polar says, age-appropriate relationships. Yes, that is going to be age-appropriate. Yeah, I'm not going to do crazy things. Like, I might take some relationships from the comics if possible, but I can tell you, one I'm never going to do is a Dale relationship with Amy or Andrea. It's never going to happen. Like, a lot of those age-inappropriate relationships that did happen in the comics won't be referenced. I might have some referenced relationships, but not like that. And even in ones that naturally spawn up, they're going to be pretty... they're going to be more appropriate. Yeah, he's more of a father. Yeah. Lori in this series. She's a good character, and so rating her character-wise is good, but she is so annoying to write for. Especially in this version of the series. Because in this version of the series, Shane doesn't really fall apart with her leaving him as hard as he does in the original series, because Shane has more of a support network. Shane has Dale, he has Daryl, he has Leon, he has Rick. So Lori ditching him doesn't really affect him as dramatically as it does in the original series. So she doesn't really cause him to go insane indirectly as she does with the original series. But she's also still just as, rude to him, and kind of more so because she has less of a reason to. But she's still a good character, so I'll put her in B tier. Carl. He is basically the exact same as in canon. He doesn't really do a ton. I mean, he's almost a non-entity. I'll put him in E. Just because he's not dramatically important to this part of the story just yet. Yeah, he's a nothing character like in the original season 1. He's more of a plot device, even in my series, than he is anything else at this point in time. But he'll definitely grow into more. I've got plans for him if things continue to go the way I suspect. The next character that we introduced in the series was Glenn. Glenn in this series is a particularly interesting one, because he's essentially one of the few that's the exact same character, but he also happens to do a little bit more than he does in the original series, so he gets a little bit more screen time. You think that, I found it interesting when he was checking the traps and killing him off was stupid in Season 8. Yes, I agree. Carl shouldn't have died, but it's what they did. I really hope, if there's anything I hope for this series, I hope that Sophia and Carl survive all the way to the finale so that I can have something kind of reminiscent of the comics. But yeah. You would like to see Andrea and Glenn more interesting than Maggie? I think it would go somewhere. Well, we'll get to Andrea, but Andrea's dead, so that can't really go anywhere in this timeline. She dies, I think the very end of episode 4 is when she dies. 4 or 5. And yeah. But yeah, Glenn in this series, he doesn't change really as a character at all. So I'll put him in A. Just under Rick, because Rick has a lot more. I mean, he doesn't have more screen time than Glenn exactly, but he's just got more important shit that he does. New Star Killer asks, so for Season 2, will you have to add Sophia to the wheel and spin for who goes missing and ends up in the barn? Well, I already have a kid's wheel, New Star Killer. I mentioned it in episode 1. It hasn't been really important up until this point, but probably not, because I don't think there's going to be a barn situation, even if they do end up at Herschel's farm. Because the reason that the barn situation happened is they happened to arrive at the exact point, and because they stopped the RV, which they wouldn't need to do with a certain thing that you see happens in episode 5. I'm wondering if any of you can guess it, now that I've basically spelled that part out. What happens in episode 5 with the RV that, is something that changes the events to Season 2. Because in Season 2, the reason they stopped the RV is because a certain part of the RV breaks, but they replaced something. Miguel is a teen, does he go on the kids' wheels? No. Miguel is 16. That's why I think I'm going to put him on the same wheel as the adults, because that's roughly the same age that... I mean, that's older than Carl was when he became a major character. I'm going to keep characters that are kids on the kids' wheels in this series up until the point that Carl became an important character in the main series. So from, like, under 14, they're going to be on the kids' wheel. Afterwards, they're going to be on the adults' wheel. So it's really not until the point Carl dies, basically. You know, up until the final season with Carl, where he's off doing missions and all of that. They're going to be on the kids' wheel until then. Yeah. But, good question, Polar. I've got a message on, Discord. Let me check that real quick. Oh. Lex is trying to join in call. She's another one of my friends. I will tell her to just, There we go. Sorry for the pause. The hose won't break on the RV. Yes, Josh. Yes, Polar, you got it. Which means that they won't stop at the place they stopped for the reasons they did, which means they won't interact with the walkers, or Carl won't get shot. All of that stuff is basically completely butterflied away just by process of, you know, the timing of the events that goes on. New Starkiller asks... Oh, the comment disappeared. Never mind. Will plays. We all know what happens to Merle. Yes, you guys all know what happened to Merle. It was kind of oof. But we should continue. We should go on to T-Dog. T-Dog in this series also is mostly like canon. He doesn't really have any major canon departures to make him particularly more interesting or less interesting. And he doesn't even do as much as Glenn does. Because, if I remember correctly, he doesn't have the mission... He doesn't go on the mission with them to... He doesn't go with them on the mission to the Vatos. I think that's Amy, Ed, Glenn, and Rick. If I remember correctly. So yeah. I'll probably put him low B tier. Because he doesn't really change at all, and unlike Glenn, who gets a couple of more helpful moments, he doesn't really change all that much of his story yet. New Starkiller says, "Rip Merle, he can't catch a break in these rewrites." Yeah, he can't catch a break in the rewrites. That's fair. And Ed went to the Vatos. Yes, I think Ed went to the Vatos. But yeah, the reason Merle can't really catch a break in these rewrites is because of the fact that that's Merle's own fault. He doesn't really do anything other than, like, his original plan in the original show. You guys know this. His plan in the original show was to get off of the roof and then in like a day or two rob the group and then leave. He is always trying to screw himself. I gave him every opportunity to survive, and then he got unlucky at the last hurdle. Which, that happens. That's stuff that happens. And, you know, honestly, there was still a 50-50 shot that he would have been perfectly fine had he been, had he had the other endings. You know, if he was still trapped on the roof, he'd have lost his hand like in canon and ended up with the governor. You know, if he left the group with none of their supplies and wandered off into the woods, I was going to have it be that I was going to have a background role where I was going to show you guys later on which villain he ends up with, where I was going to have it be he could have ended up with Randall's group, the governor, or with Negan. And that would have been an interesting story later on, but he didn't. He stayed in the group, and then he died. So, that was kind of his whole story. Speaking of, I might jump over Amy just to judge him, because we're already talking about him. Merle in this series, of the characters that's been shown in the series so far, I'd say he's honestly S tier. I would wonder what you guys think on that, but I would say he is a solid S tier. I might even put him higher than Leon. Just by proxy of the fact that the entirety of the side, basically every single side plot in the entirety of our season 1 has revolved around Merle. You know, in the second episode is when Merle is first introduced, right? And it's the entire story of him basically being a dick on the roof. The episode 3, you have Merle crash out and attack the group, almost cause a couple of deaths. In episode 4, you have him voted to stay in, and, you know, all the chaos happens at main group where he saves Shane's life and gets bit, having his own mini redemption. And episode 5, you have him finally slowly reveal his bite and all of that. So I think, just by proxy of the fact that he has had the second most screen time of anyone in the series, and he's just been incredibly important to it, yeah, he's going to be in this series. A couple of questions went through. Josh Pruitt Polar said Negan and Merle would have been interesting. Yeah, I agree. 100% agree on that. Hello, Miranda Whitney. Pleasure to see you. Welcome to the stream. New Starkiller says, is there any chance of any Telltale characters getting into the rewrite, or even any comic book characters getting into the group? So, that was actually what I thought you guys were going to do with the requests. Because the requests were any characters or custom characters that you wanted to go and have in the series. Because it was entirely up to you on that. But outside of you guys specially requesting a show alternative to one of those characters, no, I don't really plan on introducing any that aren't originally in the show. Unless it is something that is requested, and in a particular moment where the group has more people than in canon, you can roll to have that character be one of the people. So, yeah. You guys could have stuff like that in the future. Will Morgan come into the show still? That is dependent on how things go between Morgan and Eastman, and all of basically, yeah, between Morgan and Eastman and how that situation goes, and where the group is at what time will determine when Morgan actually runs into them. Like, if the prison never falls, or something like that, if they go to the prison at all, then Morgan will run into them earlier, you know, a whole storyline will be moved ahead, all kinds of stuff will happen there. Or, you know, Morgan might never run into them, you know, the group could entirely die, and then I'll have to have a series go from there where Morgan is the only living character, and we have to watch him travel around to find the bodies of all of his friends, which would be depressing as shit. Morgan joining Negan? That's kind of crazy. I don't see that coming anytime soon. Yeah. We should talk about Amy's character now. Amy's character in this series is really interesting. She's still really nice and really polite and calm, but she's had some gun training from Shane, as has Carol and basically everybody else on this list, aside from the young kids and Lori, to really just be safer as a group, because Shane's always been more militant and all. So Lori, so Amy really just had more opportunities to be important. And she has kind of been as important in this series as Glenn is in the original. You know, she's in episode 2, and she's the one who calms Carol when they have to cut open the guy. Amy just might be one of your favorites. I'm actually going to get to where I have Amy placed, in my opinion, for this version of the show. Secondarily to that moment, real quick, to hop back on track, Amy also has her kind of semi-romantic moments with Leon, which are pretty fun. Her whole scene with Leon putting down Amy is depressing as shit, and hit me hard even while I was writing it. And the scenes you guys are going to see in episode 6 are also in that same vein, where it's going to be, like, it's going to be really painful. Is by chance a chaos roll, the bad guys of this season are actually the good guys, while the good guys are the bad guys? Like, I'm thinking, like, the kingdom are the bad guys, while the saviors are good. No. Because I'm trying to keep the characters, as they appear, like their canon counterparts. Like, Negan, he's still Negan. The only reason that Shane is a better dude in this timeline is because of, well, 3 reasons. He's had more of a support structure because he's friends with Daryl, Leon, and Dale. He has less of a threat to his power because Rick hasn't really completely superseded him as leader like he has originally by this point. And thirdly, he's had to deal with a lot less stress personally because he's had less of a chance to he's had less of an opportunity to interact with Lori than he did in canon. He's been pretty much focused entirely on leading the group. So, like, that's the only reason he isn't evil. Negan could have a redemption arc, like in canon, but that's about it. If you saw the Saul Goodman rewrite, you know what I mean. I did get what you were referencing, yes. Yes, Magnus Roberts is a fantastic channel. You guys should all go subscribe to him if you're not already. He was the guy who inspired DJC Gaming, who inspired me. Speaking of, everyone is basically agreeing that Amy is one of their favorites. Honestly, what I was going to do is I was going to put her ahead of Leon. Not because I necessarily like her more than Leon, because Leon is a completely independent character. I get to have a lot more creative control over him, because all we really know about him is the fact that he's kind of a dunce, but well-meaning. So, I do kind of like him more on a personal level. But I think Amy's just been more of an interesting character because we have more we can do with her. And, you know, most of Leon's best scenes come from his interactions with Amy and his connection to her, where she's still the main focus of all of that. So yeah, I would put her ahead of Leon in S tier. DJC Gaming, think that's a good spot? Thank you. Now for Carol. Okay, so Carol in this series is already pretty interesting. She has a pretty fantastic relationship in this series with Daryl already, which is basically established with the whole situation near the end of episode 5. She's already got a lot more confidence because of her training by Shane, and the fact that Shane's basically watching Ed like a hawk. So, excuse me. So Ed isn't capable of doing more of the fucked up things he usually would in canon. So Carol's got a lot more confidence. I love her scenes with Andrea that she gets in episode 3, where she gets to basically get Andrea, Will Plays says he watched DJC Gaming, he loved it. Yes, DJC Gaming is a fantastic YouTuber, my personal inspiration to do this series. I commented basically what I do here under his series when I watched it and had the time to actually write out everything. Yeah, it's pretty great. Everyone who wanted Daryl and Carol is not for me. The age gap bothers me. Okay, Will. Well, that's fair. Although I should say the age gap between Carol and Daryl isn't as large as you would think. Carol in Season 1 is only in her early 40s, and Daryl is in his mid to late 30s. So it's not actually all that big a gap. In fact, Daryl, Rick, and Shane are only really born within the same year of each other. And Carol's only a little bit older than they are. I know she might seem older, but that's, you know, stress and the fact that Ed's just a horrific piece of shit who causes all of that stress to her. Carol is not very old. In fact, in the comics, I'm pretty sure she's younger than Shane and Rick. She's just blonde. But yeah, Carol in this series, she has a lot more confidence. She has a couple of more important scenes. She's pretty great in episode 2. standing up to Merle was a pretty fun scene for her, I think. Yeah. I wouldn't put her anywhere near as high as I would put Glenn, but I think I would put her maybe just ahead of Lori. I think that works. I think that works for me. I think I'd put her just ahead of Lori. Because she still does more... She does as much plot-wise as T-Dog and Lori does. But her scenes are just a lot more impactful than T-Dog, who is mostly the same as in canon, or Lori, who is kind of also mostly the same as in canon. Now we get to Jim. Jim was a fascinating character. He was a fascinating character to write. Will you do more with Jim's dreams? You're gonna love episode 6, Polar. Yeah. Polar asked if we're going to be doing more with Jim's dreams. Yes, we are. We have an entire scene nope, I'm not gonna say anything. No, we're not. I'm not gonna spoil shit. Don't trick me. But yes, we're going to do more with Jim eventually for his dreams. It's a pretty major part of his character. The dream he had in episode 2, or at the end of episode 2, that I think, yeah, we're going to reference it more. Jim in this series is a lot more interesting because he's going to have to go on the long path to recovery. He is not doing very well at all. Future Googleman Jim, says New Star Killer. I don't fully understand what that means, but go off. Jim in this series, he does more, and he has a lot more personal scenes where you see more into him without him kind of going nuts on people. Like, he has a really polite talk with Shane, and while Shane really doesn't like Jim, because he views Jim as, like, pitiful and kind of weak because of the things he's done, he's still an interesting character. I wouldn't put him above Lori, just because he hasn't had the opportunity to be a bunch more yet. But he does still have that pretty good scene with Shane, and by proxy of him having been alive longer here than in canon, he was slightly more interesting. If this was canon Jim, I'd probably put him down with like a C or a D, but he's kind of done more to be more interesting. I think he deserves that spot. Daryl. Oh boy, Daryl. New Star Killer says Wildcat reference from Vanoss Gaming is what he was going at. God, that's a throwback. Vanoss. I remember watching him in HBO Delirious and cartoons and Daffy DeNogla, the whole gang back in the day. They were fun. Anyways, Daryl. He is another character that is so insanely important to this version of the story. He's really interesting in that respect. He's kind of the secondary right-hand man to Shane across this story. Kind of even ahead of Rick until Rick returns, of course, and takes that right-hand man position. And he has his whole speech about family at the end of episode... What was it? Episode 3 or 4? I think it was episode 3 that he has that speech at the end of. Yeah, episode 3. And... yeah, he has that speech. He has a couple of his major dialogue scenes with Merle. He has the scene with Carol. I think he's a really emotional character, especially in this series, because everything has kind of gone off the worst way it could for Daryl personally. But he hasn't had a chance to do a ton of action in this version of Season 1. Like Rick Grimes' spicy, we can all live together. I actually made a reference to that in episode 5. I'm wondering if you guys caught that. Where when they first go to the Vatos gang, Rick is like, we can all live together. And Shane says, like, we've got strong men. We can help protect your group. I made a "we can all live together" joke in episode 5. I caught that shit. I needed to. It was very fun. But yeah, Daryl's a pretty interesting character in the series. I would put him above Dale. What is Rick Grimes' spicy? I'm assuming it's just he's referencing the "we can all live together" line. I don't know what he means by spicy necessarily, Polar, but yeah. But yeah, Daryl's really interesting. I can't put him above Leon or Amy or Merle, but yeah, he is very high A tier, just for virtue of having so much to do and so much to say. Honestly, though, I don't know if I'd put him above... Yeah, I'll put him above Dale and Rick. He goes above Dale and Rick. Andrea. Oh, lordy, Andrea. Oh, shoot. My phone died. Give me a second, people. If I am slow to respond to comments, that'll be because of the fact that, well, I can't see any comments until I can get my other screen, which was my phone, back up. Senator Leon, are either of you still in call?
I am. Zen's no longer in call.
Oh. Would you, Leon, would you be willing to read the comments to me until I can get my phone up and running again? Just so I can keep going?
Sure. Let me quickly switch over to it.
Sorry about that, Leon. Also, what are some opinions you have on the series so far? Just from what you've heard, because I know you haven't watched.
It's not that. It's I also was working on a drawing.
Oh, that's fair.
It is. I was about to say it is a relevant drawing because I was going to draw a thumbnail for your stream.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's just all of us around. It's all of us around the table.
I like that. Yeah, thanks, man.
But I was about to say Gab's still here.
I can't see what Gab's saying either, because to do that I'd have to leave stream.
Let's see here. Gab in quotes to you saying she's just a blonde lol, and then oh dumbass low.
I don't know what he's means.
Those are the last two he did.
I don't know what he means by that, but yeah, sorry. Any comments I missed?
Let's see here. Let's see here. Josh Prout said, "What is Rick Grimes spicy?" And then Rip Andrea Will plays this version's Amy, and then New Star Killer said Andreas is is Andrea, is that how it is?
Andrea, yeah.
Andrea is just the Amy in this universe.
Yes. You guys are right on that. Oh, and I've got my phone back up. Yeah, Andrea is just this version of Amy. Polar and Starkiller and Will, you guys all have that right. She doesn't really do a ton. I'd put her... She has 2 scenes. One where she reunites... Or no, she has 3. She has 3 scenes. One where she reunites with Amy. One where she yells at Shane. And another where she has her scene with Carol. Other than that, she doesn't do a ton. I'd hesitate to even put her above Gabe. I might put her at low C, just because she has so little to do with the story. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, the happy birthday scene. Wait, I remember now. Yeah, never mind. She's going low B. Oh, yeah, that one scene hurt. Yeah. For those of you watching that still haven't seen to that point in the series, just go to, I think, the, maybe the 11-minute mark on episode 4, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Good God, is it painful. Just, oh my, there's a reason episode 4 is called Happy Birthday. Yeah, it hurts. Yeah. Sophia. I don't really have anything to say about Sophia in this series. She hasn't had a chance to shine. She got that sweater from her mom, which is an extra scene that she doesn't get in the original series. And I made that sweater a reference to Clementine from the games, but other than that, she hasn't really done much, so I'll put her on the same level as Carl, where she's kind of a nothing burger and more of a plot device than anything else. Ed. God, Ed is insufferable. Yes, Amy did get the necklace this time, Polar. Amy gave it to her on her deathbed as she was bleeding out in Amy's arms. She said happy birthday and gave her the necklace. It was super fucked up. Yeah. Ed. I despise Ed with every fiber of my being. What were some of the Ed scenes? Okay, so Ed in this timeline, Ed went for a trip with, I think it was T-Dog and Leon, to set up signs where he complained about where you guys don't see it in the show because it doesn't really matter, but he complains about the fact that he saw his parents die in front of him and he blames his alcoholism on that, but T-Dog sees through his bullshit because he was an asshole even before, from what Carol says. Which is a reference to his comic counterpart. Yeah, I know you never got the scenes with Ed, T-Dog, and Leon. That's why I'm bringing up the information that happened in them now. I was honestly wondering if you guys were going to ask that question here. I thought about them maybe running into a certain character, but I decided against it. Anyways, that's all that really happened in that background event. We also see Ed threaten Carol a couple of times, but most of it gets ended either by Shane, who does it somewhat politely, or by, Daryl, who basically fucking hits him like he's One Punch Man. And has Merle cackling at him from the back seat. Ed also beat the shit out of Miguel for no good reason. And that's basically all he did. He was just an asshole. I think I will put him in D tier. I think he might be the only D tier character we even get. Just by virtue of the fact that he's an asshole who has 3 scenes. And he's interesting as a plot device more than a character, but he's not as low down on the story as, Carl or Sophia. Miranda, she's another F tier. She has no lines really shown in the series. She's referenced, I think, a total of 3 or 4 times. And most of those are during the scene where she leaves. New Star Killer says, wait till we get the Ed redemption. Maybe. I really hope I don't have to write something like that just because of how much of a piece of shit Ed really is. But, maybe.
Redemption?
If there's an event where he could get a redemption, maybe. He could end up having a redemption. Also, Miranda Whitney, I was not talking about you as a Nothing Burger character. You're not Miranda Morales. Different person, okay? But yeah, she doesn't really do anything in the series. Sorry, what, Leon?
I was just gonna say you could say he gets an Ed-demption.
Ed-demption. Crazy.
I'm here to make bad puns.
Yeah, it's hardly a pun. Oh, and Josh, Polar said the exact same thing. He said Ed-demption.
See, great minds think alike.
Great minds think alike. Indeed. Morales, he's also kind of a Nothing Burger character, but he does get in a few lines where he insults, Merle and gets called a dipshit by Shane, basically. So, I think it's pretty fair to put him maybe a little higher than the kids. He's got a couple of lines that makes him more important than them. And I'll also put, Miranda over Mrs. Heller. He does cook some food. He does get to cook some food with his wife, and it's some pretty fire food. Gets to make some nice stew. Yeah. Actually, before we get to Jackie and then into the Vatos gang and the kids, we should talk about people who were introduced in the same time as Sophia, Ed, Morales, and Miranda. That being, we should talk about Antonia, and I'll have, just for virtue of her being here, I'll have Maggie be the stand-in for Antonia, and Herschel be the stand-in for Edward. Redemption. God damn it, New Star Killer. That's the worst pun I've ever seen. Terrible. Terrible. Anyways, for Mr. Strathmore, he teaches the kids in a couple of scenes, which is pretty fun. He's the one who does he performs the funerary rites, and I think that's about all Edward does at this point in the series. Miranda says, I think it was a great pun very much. Thank you, Boba. Well, fuck you too. Sorry, I shouldn't say words like that on stream. I'll get in trouble for it. Crazy shit. Anyways. Yeah, I think he goes just above Morales. Bobama? Is that what you were calling me? Bobama? Crazy. Yes! Wait, you're right. Carl did learn the quote that Dale ends up referencing. The quote to, yes, I hear you. I hear you. Bobama. It's haha so funny. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Yeah, but he does teach Carl, the reference to, God, why am I forgetting the name of the poet off the top of my head? I recognized it immediately when Dale talked about it when I watched the original show. It's,
Boba. Gab said, lol, Mandalobobian.
Mandalobobian? Crazy. Crazy. I know the poet's first name was William. I can't remember off the top of my head. Doesn't really matter. Don't know why I thought on that tirade for a second. Anyways, Antonia. She, so far, basically just gets a scene where she agrees with Shane, and she comes in from the group from a side quest that she was doing, which, if I remember what, the requester, Antonia, wanted, was to, I think, go back to her home and find her cat, which I'm probably gonna have to reference at some point. I should bring it up. It's not something that really mattered, but there was just a cat at the camp. I never brought it up because it wasn't really important. So, I mean, there was that. There's that. There was a cat around. I don't know if I'm gonna have it still be with the group, because logically, I mean, why would it be? It probably ran off into the woods, but who knows? If Antonia asks, I will, I don't know, flip a coin and see if it's still in the series. I would put Antonia's character right here before Morales. Right here under Morales, because, again, does just about as much. Doesn't have a chance to be as interesting quite yet in the story, because she's a side character to side characters. Jackie. She hunts or picks up some snares that Daryl set up and then dies. That's it. She kind of doesn't do anything. She's a kind of a Mrs. Heller character. In fact, I think if I remember the original scripts correctly, I referenced Mrs. Heller more times than Jackie. But yeah, Jackie's kind of a nothing burger character. Doesn't really have any lines at all that are important. Yeah. Polar says, R.A.P. Jackie, she did nothing. Like canon, she did basically nothing. And Jim outlives her this time, which is, you know, interesting enough, I guess. Miguel. Miguel is an interesting one because he's kind of got a dynamic with, Glenn and Amy. and it will be developed more, but as of so far, he hasn't really done anything other than help make peace between the Vatos and Rick's group so that there was never really any threat, and they solved it faster and got back to the group faster. But, like, yeah, other than that, and a couple of moments with Amy, he doesn't really do a ton. I might put him high end of E. I don't know. I think very high end of E. Yeah. No, you know what? I'll bring him up to... Yeah, Ed's not going to be the only D tier. I'll bring him up to D tier. You hope the Vatos or some of the Vatos live longer? Well, Jorge, Felipe, Gargiulio, and, why am I forgetting his name off the top of my head now? I had it 30 seconds ago. Miguel. DGC Gaming and New Star Killer both hope that some of the Vatos live longer. Guillermo, not Gargiulio. God damn it, I confused him with one of Negan's, or one of the governor's men. You're right, sorry, it's Guillermo. God damn it, why did I think that? Sorry, Polar, you're right. Oof, that was stupid of me. Anyways, Miguel doesn't really do a ton so far, but he does have more importance to a specific singular episode than any of these characters do, so I'm gonna put him higher. Jorge! Nothing burger character. He's one of the two guys to jump Amy, and he's in the background for the rest of the episode. That's it. He'll have more importance later, and maybe, if he does anything, and that's about it. Same for Felipe. He does basically nothing. Felipe and Jorge, let's hope they go do stuff in the future, because they have some pretty interesting backstories. Like, Felipe used to be a nurse, so, maybe he has some medical knowledge. Maybe they could be something, but so far they aren't anything at all. Now for Guillermo. I'm going to put Guillermo just for his interactions with the group and his discussion with Shane and his scenes with Amy, Rick, and Miguel. He does have quite a bit more importance than Miguel or Ed. He's in more episodes. He has more scenes than Amy. I'd put him... Might seem crazy, but I think I'll put him ahead of Jim, just below Lori. Just because it's his permission that has such a dramatic impact on the story. Not to mention the fact that he references what's going to happen in episode 6, which I'm really hoping you guys have guessed already so that you don't murder me. Will you flip a coin to see if a minor character or a main character kills a villain? I think maybe, probably not. I think it's going to be main characters who kill main villains, just like in canon. But those main characters could be anyone, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, wait, I did just realize that. Polar brought up a good point. Miguel and Ed, the guy who beat Miguel, are on the same tier. That is funny. That's a good point. Maybe I should move Ed into his own tier just to make sure that he can't attack him again.
Keep the two separate.
Yeah, keep the two separate. Yeah, there you go, Miguel. You get promoted by proxy. You're better than Ed, just because Ed's a piece of shit, and screw him. Eliza. She is so much of a nothing burger that she's referenced twice, and Lewis is so much of a nothing burger he's referenced once. So, that's the entire cast. Oop. What do you think of this tier list of the characters who've shown up in my show so far? New Star Killer says put Ed in the Ed tier. You know what? Sure. Let's just move everybody up one, and then put Ed off in his corner in the Ed tier. Let's not leave Ed alone with the kids for too long. There we go. Ed. The Ed tier. There we go. You guys like it? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am really excited to see how the future of this series goes. If you guys have any questions for why I made certain decisions, I would love to hear them. Just any questions you guys might have. Because there is a lot of things that will be changed for this series outside of what the roles show. What happened to Lambert, the other cop? In canon, he's dead. The reason he doesn't show up in Shane's backstory episode is because of the fact that he isn't shown in the game that episode is basically one big reference to. Now we wait 12 days until the finale of Season 1 of this rewrite. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm working on it. If I can get it out earlier than the anniversary, I will. But if I do release it before the anniversary, you probably won't get any videos for the anniversary. You know, maybe if I release it before the anniversary comes, just the second I can get it finished, I will have another stream on the anniversary being a part 2 to this, where you guys can ask, you know, any further questions you might have, now finally knowing the things that happen in Season 2. Or knowing the things that happen in the final episode, so you can do that. You could even rearrange the characters' rankings on this list based on the episode, because I think a couple of characters' rankings will change based on the stuff that happens in this episode. Josh Pitt asks, so is Dwayne dead? Yeah. Dwayne, I mean, I might flip a coin on it, but the way I was going to have it work was, if we ended up with Rick as the main character, there would be a possibility of Morgan and Dwayne surviving, or Morgan or Dwayne dying, so it could be both or one or the other. But that would mean that Shane's whole situation goes as canon. But if with Shane as the main character, I have a feeling that I will just have Rick's whole interaction with Morgan and Dwayne be exactly as canon, so that Dwayne dies and Morgan is the one who goes off and meets everybody. New Starkiller asks, are you rolling dice to see how many die in the season finale? I have, and I've already done it. I won't tell you how many end up dying. I will just tell you guys that you were very lucky with who died, and how bad it could have been. I will tell you how many could have died. You could have had as many as 5 characters die, which, in case you don't know, is, of the living cast that is in the game, or in the show itself, that would be a third of the cast. A little over a third of the entire cast could have died in the finale of Season 1. And you have gotten insanely lucky with who died and where. I agree that it's a lot, but considering who came after them, Polar, you gotta understand. I think you guys know who went after him, considering the shadow shape at the end of Episode 5. It could have been really bad with the deaths, but I think you guys will be okay with the deaths. You guys got very lucky with who dies. I won't tell you how many, but yeah. Polar says that it's the governor, and I don't know. Won't tell you. I mean, you guys already know, so if you know, you know. But, New Starkiller says, is the reason the two OCs are on the wheel because the art isn't done yet. The OCs are on the wheel because their characters exist within the story. They could die before I ever get art for them. And if that's the case, I will just post a picture of what their art would have been had they gone on with the series. In fact, if it wasn't so insanely difficult, I would honestly ask for art of all of the characters who end up surviving that didn't in canon. Like, I would totally ask for art of a Season 2 Guillermo, Miguel, you know, Jim, Amy, Leon, all that stuff, but I have a feeling that it would take way too much time to get Season 2 started if I was to do that. So I think I'll just wait for art for Mr. Strathmore and Antonia. But if any of you wanted to make art, I'd be interested in seeing it. And if you guys were, willing to give it to me, I would definitely use it for future videos, just as more art of characters who don't have many images. Like, Leon and Amy in particular have an extreme lack of images, as does Guillermo and Miguel. So, if any of those characters survive for much longer and you guys want to make art, I'd be more than willing to have it. And I'd even reference you in the descriptions of all videos that include that art as the artist. So, yeah. Any other questions, guys? Jesus, my voice is starting to go on. I glitched out on that one. I heard the voice crack. But yeah, any more questions, guys? Josh, Polar asked, so Jorge and Felipe have more images. They have a couple. Jorge has one other image of himself, and Felipe has 3. They in particular are in need of major art, but if I don't get any, that's also fine. It's really just the 2 OCs that need an image for the sake of them being on the main list, so I can put them on in deaths and stuff. But yeah. Do all the extras die? New Starkiller. Well, that is something you will have to wait to find out. Excuse me. I won't tell you. Just so you know, being on main cast doesn't mean that there aren't extras. Not being on the main cast or in minor characters doesn't mean there aren't extras. So, I won't tell you if all the extras die or not, but that doesn't mean there won't be, like Woodbury. When we get to Woodbury and Alexandria, I'm not going to have every single Alexandrian. There was 100 people in that city. And in the old folks' home, there were 45. So, I'm not going to tell you if all the extras die or not. Because even if they didn't, they wouldn't be on the tier list or on the wheel or anything. They'd be people who are in the background who might die in the future. So, yeah. That's, any other questions? Yes. So, Polar asked, is Merle using his stash of drugs? We actually get to see him using it, and that's what helps slow the rate of his infection in episode 5. That's why he's snorting drugs, cocaine specifically, before he gets into his, before he gets into the car with, Daryl. He's trying to use it to suppress the pain and suppress the symptoms. It's also the location of his bite and his previous health that contributed to why he hasn't turned nearly as quickly as Jim would have. For his turning rate, I'm kind of using him as a reference from, Lee in The Walking Dead. In the Walking Dead game. Lee took about a day to turn. About a full day. He got bit really early in the morning, and he died almost at the early morning the next day. Polar says he's glad Merle trusted the group enough to tell... he's glad Daryl trusted the group enough to tell them about Merle. Yeah? Well, yeah, it's fair, too, that he trusts them more. Daryl's work... Despite what Merle's been telling him, Daryl has been working with Shane rather closely over the last couple of months. As I mentioned, he before Rick came along, he was basically his second right-hand man. He was his left hand to Leon's right. And he was trusted with the more... I hesitate to say important, but it is. He was trusted with the more important, less people-associated jobs than Leon was. Because Leon's just not made for that. He's kinda slow, as much as he tries. So, there are moments like that. Anything else? Because if everyone is done with their questions for the series, I think we can end the stream here. Alright, I don't see any more comments coming in. Polar said that he enjoyed the stream. I'm glad you guys all enjoyed it. Oh, you're just here for the background noise, Miranda? Well, okay, thank you. Anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed the stream, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!